Hey, Brendan here. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Got a quarterback show here for you today. I'm going to talk about my top quarterbacks for Dynasty in our 2024 rookie drafts. It is a week before the combine. I'm not going to take too much away from the combine when it comes to the quarterbacks. I'm sure if you were there live and you were looking at their arm strength and all of that, I'm sure we'll get lots of details. But, here we are. We're leading up 2 months away from the NFL draft. I figured I'd jump on my channel here and kind of go over my thoughts. I've watched a ton of film on all of these quarterbacks, all 22 film. I've been playing Devy format. I've been watching all these guys, Drake May, Caleb Williams, for 2 or 3 years. So my film has been exhausted, right? But we got lots of pieces from the quarterbacks still that we don't have to really be able to hone in on their true success in the NFL, right? We don't have draft capital yet. We don't have landing spots. More on landing spots in a minute. But when it comes back to the quarterback position, me personally, I think there's a huge piece that none of us have in really determining whether or not these quarterbacks are going to make it to our dynasty rosters and be long-term dynasty assets. And that's the intangibles, man. And I am someone who's always said in scouting and for all the members of my dashboard subscription and everything, intangibles matter, right? And, we don't know what the intangibles are for the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft or even for the, second and third rounders, right? So unless you're really privy to talking to the coaches, it plays such a huge role in the success of an NFL quarterback, right? It's the hardest position in all sports, right? And why is it? Well, because you have to have mental processing off the charts to even be, considered to be a great quarterback in the NFL and a long-term quarterback, right? And that's probably why most guys fail, is because they can't mentally process the field. And I don't think any of us really know what the mental processing is of any of these quarterbacks at all, except if you are an NFL scout really sitting down with the quarterback and with the player individually. I mean, what goes into the intangibles? It's not just the mental processing. It's like, can you learn in a new offense? Can you, understand all the schemes? Can you read the defense? Can you be the face of the franchise? Can you handle the media scrutiny, right? I mean, can you lead a locker room of men? I mean, that's a pretty tall order. And, history tells us that majority of these guys fail probably because they can't do all of those things. So here we are, 2 months out from the draft. I'm still going to have fun with it, putting the show out here. And me personally, I feel like the NFL just puts these guys, they put undue expectation on all of these players, whether you're first, second, third round draft pick. I mean, we're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy. There's no way in my mind, personally, he should be a first round draft pick. I think he's being put in a position to fail with the pressure of being a first round pick, when in fact, he should probably be a later pick that doesn't set the expectations and doesn't put the expectations on him. It's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's a hard game to play, and the pressure that goes with everything that I just spoke about. We live in a world of impatience, and God damn it, if they're going to draft someone in the first round, they expect them to go in there and play. And I think most of these guys, even Caleb Williams, would be great, given the offense that he came from, would be to sit like a Jordan Love experiment. Green Bay Packers do it right. They let all these kids sit and just learn how to be a professional, learn the offense, learn the receivers, get the practice reps. Sometimes if you take a long ball approach, it might actually work out better. But these NFL teams throw these guys into the field like just they're not ready. And, success is, the history is there. Look at the quarterback situation in the NFL right now. It's like ridiculous. Half the teams don't even want to use the guy they have and don't have a real good player to even have a chance of winning a Super Bowl. So with that said, let's get to the players. Again, I'm going to give you my ranks. I've watched a lot of plays, a lot of film, and these are just my personal opinions. Take it for what you want. But my guy that if I'm going to draft number 1 as a quarterback, I am going to go with Drake May. And I know that is not a popular opinion right now, okay? But I like Drake May, 6'4", 220 pounds. I love the prototypical size. He's a junior, so he's got 3 years. And the guy did not play with a lot of great weapons outside of Josh Downs. I mean, can you name a receiver that's really, maybe Diami Brown that you can remember watching Drake May? I've watched this kid for 3 years play. I mean, he's had some really good moments. He's had some low lights as well. But I like things about him that, I'm going to try and limit my risk with the first pick. And I'm going to talk about Caleb Williams, number 2. But Drake May, I just like the size. I think he's got, he is a fluid athlete. He played basketball in high school. He's got that prototypical size. He's a dual threat. I mean, I think he's an underrated athlete. Yeah, does he have some bad habits? He does. But I think he's got underrated mobility and rushing upside. Now, there's a lot of talk out there, Drake May, right now with his inaccuracy, and that's his biggest issue. Well, let me tell you, I've watched like film on all these guys. They're all inaccurate at times. Caleb Williams throws a lot of inaccurate balls as well. So does Jaden Daniels and Penn, all the guys that we're going to talk about. And he's a 3-year player, so he might be able to improve in that. Yeah, but you're right. When Drake May, from a standpoint, you're going to see too on the cards here, guys, that these are just some career stats, PFF passing grades, my scouting report, and my draft and dynasty projections and stuff. So while I'm talking, you can kind of look at that, take screenshots of these if you want to. But I like his, I like Drake May overall. I mean, the guy can really throw the ball vertical. He can make all the plays. He's got the big arm, can make all the throws all over the field. His biggest issue is really his decision making. I mean, when he's off accuracy wise, I mean, the guy is really off. I mean, he throws some really bad throws at times, but I don't know. I feel like maybe that's something he can develop and get better. So I'm going to look at the more positive side traits that I am the negative ones. His decision making is fundamentally sometimes not great. He tries to extend plays longer than they should and makes like bad boneheaded throws a lot. He can force the ball sometimes, believing in that big arm. Sometimes his mechanics aren't great, but I think overall, I think he's got a good mechanic. I'm not a mechanical, quarterback guru, but he looks natural to me on the majority of the times, even when under pressure. It takes too many hits sometimes, but overall, as an overall prospect, Caleb Williams is going to go to Chicago, right? So landing spots is something we should probably talk about here. Go off script here just a little bit. We've got, Washington is picking number 2. Are they going to go, with Drake May or Jaden Daniels? Now, Cliff Kingsbury is now the offensive coordinator at Washington with the 2nd pick in the draft. Their choice is going to be Drake May, or are they going to go, assuming that Williams goes, because I think Justin Fields is going to be out the door, and that guy deserves a new shot in a new city, and just to get out, he needs a fresh start. So I'm assuming on this video that, Caleb Williams is going number 1 to Chicago. So Washington, and then you got New England, right? So Washington, Cliff Kingsbury's there. He's worked with Kyle Murray. He worked with Mahomes at Texas Tech. So he might like that more scrambling ability, right? So I'm going to assume for this video that they select Jaden Daniels because they want that rushing upside. I mean, that's what Jaden Daniels, and we're going to get to him in a minute. And then you got New England, right? I'd be really, really disappointed if New England takes Drake May. That landing spot is going to matter to me. They've got a new offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt. First time as a coordinator. He's been apparently at the Browns for a little bit, but he's going to be a first-time play caller. They got no weapons on the outside. They got Ramondre Stevenson coming off an injury for a running game. They might actually trade out. I'm thinking they actually trade down with maybe Atlanta or the Giants or Minnesota and say, you know what, we're not ready to take a quarterback. That would be great. Anybody going to New England right now, with given the lack of, because situations matter to me. Situations matter. I mean, landing spots matter for these players. Just look at Bryce Young. You think if Bryce Young, went to Houston and, he'd be a different, probably successful quarterback, I believe he would. But getting back to the show, getting back to my ranks here, I'm going to go with Drake May right now. I'm not sure what out there is going to change my mind between now and the draft. I've watched these players in exhaustion. I can't watch any more film. We've watched it. It's all out there to see. And like I said, the combine for me is not going to move the needle on Drake May. So he is going to be a guy that I would probably take. Again, let's wait for landing spots. But right now, if we don't know what the landing spots are outside of Caleb Williams going to Chicago, we'll have to see. So Caleb Williams, right, he's my number 2 guy. The dude has got a crazy ceiling upside. I get it. He's been the number 1 wide receiver quarterback ranked for the last 2 years. He's got all the tools in the toolbox. He's got a live arm. I mean, his off-script instincts, I think, is what made everyone have fallen in love with Caleb Williams. He can extend plays with his legs. He throws those crazy things. I mean, he's the closest thing to Mahomes. I mean, that is an unfair comparison. I really, really hope that when we get to the draft, everyone's not saying, oh, he's, Caleb Williams is the next Mahomes. It's just unfair to put these expectations on these kids, man. But that is the world we live in right now, and there is not a damn thing we can do about it. But he can make all the throws. I think the thing that to me that I get concerned about him, I feel like Drake May works better within the pocket and, running a traditional kind of offense without always having to go off script. And I think, Mahomes, I just here was going to call Mahomes. Caleb Williams to me just lacks the pocket patience. He's always looking. He can win in structure in the pocket, but man, he just loves to play outside. And I think he loves that gunslinger mentality. Did he rely too much on his athleticism and big arm and not enough on his mechanics and reading the field and reading defenses? That is what I don't know. And watching these two play between Drake May and Caleb Williams, because they seem to be one or two for most people, I just feel like Drake May went through his progressions a lot more, stood more in the pocket, big arm, delivered the ball down the field a little bit more. And Caleb Williams was just the guy that liked to run around. And yeah, I'm not saying he didn't, play within structure at times. But man, I'll tell you what, he just seems to be, moving in the pocket a lot, just didn't seem to stand in there and take hits and deliver the ball, consistently. Of course, he flashed in that area, but not consistently. And that was, to me, the big difference. I mean, he's had 32 fumbles in 36 games in his career. So his ball security is terrible. And the thing is, I mean, I just talked about it. I am an intangibles guy. And there's things that I've seen little glimpses and glimmers of Caleb Williams just, refusing to talk to reporters after the UCLA game, refusing to shake hands with with players on the Utah game. I mean, there's reports out there of that, he's not going to get an age and he wants to represent himself. He's done interviews saying how he knows that everyone in the world would love to be in his shoes. So I don't know, man, that to me is just a concern. And I'm sure I'm going to get comments on this video being like, dude, you're insane. He's got the most upside. He's the most talented. I get it. But man, I'll tell you what, if this guy comes in here and he's like a little high on himself and he's got to go in here and get 56 men or however many teams are, on the field or in the locker room at the time, I'm not sure that he's going to be the guy that people are going to look up to and be like, let's hitch our wagon to this guy. Or is he going to be about me doing ads? I'll bet he's going to be on every TV ad after the draft, doing, and that's the Robert Griffin Jr. He did that, those Subway ads. And I'm just kind of making a comparison, that, what's going to be more important to him? For me, I love the whole Andrew Luck, the way he did it. He went in, you never saw that dude on an ad. He went in and just started to go to work. I think Caleb Williams wants to be a celebrity. I think he wants to be on every ad. And, if you're going to lock him in and be your franchise guy, you better sit and interview this dude and know exactly what you are getting. And that's where I'm saying the biggest point right now with intangibles is we don't know who Caleb Williams is, and nobody knows. All the people on X and writing scouting reports and what they look like on the field is really all we have to go with right now. But inside that guy's head, I've not seen any of that stuff with Drake May. So again, they're 1 and 2, 1A, 1B for me. I'm going to lean Drake May right now as the guy that I think I'm going to hitch my wagon to. There's going to be a lot of people out there that don't agree with that, and that is certainly okay. Number 3, Jaden Daniels for me, I think literally could arguably maybe have the best season out of all of them. All right. But we'll have to see, because from a fantasy standpoint, you can't deny what Jaden Daniels has done. I mean, just look on the chart here that you're looking at. I mean, the dude's at 3,700 yards rushing, for Christ's sake. I mean, he's, it's unbelievable. I mean, the guy has had 30 touchdowns on the ground, 254 rushing attempts is just insane. I mean, he's the best rushing QB in this class. I mean, he can make all the throws too. Sets up his receivers really well. I love the way he anticipates his throws. And I think what we have to keep an eye on too is Jaden Daniels had arguably the best 2 wide receivers. I mean, Caleb Williams didn't have great receivers this year. Drake May had no receivers this year, and Devontae Walker is not a NFL wide receiver in my mind, so I'm not going to use him as a guy who really he could rely on. But Jaden Daniels had 2 of the best receivers, arguably the number 1 receiver in all college football with Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. Was no slouch this year either. But what I really like about Jaden Daniels too is that he is unfazed in pressure. He stood in there and took hit after hit. Good timing on his throws, good deep ball accuracy. He can layer the balls down the middle as well. Showed some eye manipulation, went through his progression. So, as much as he likes to run the ball, I saw him standing in the pocket more, than just trying to run. A lot more I saw Jaden Daniels standing in the pocket more than Caleb Williams. But he's got a good arm, but it's not elite. And the one thing, when he did scramble, he never kept his eyes down the field. When he decided to run, he was going to run, where I thought he, gave up some opportunities to, move around the pocket. The things that do concern me a little bit more about Jaden Daniels too is his slight frame, very skinny, something maybe I have to get over. Something I was concerned about with Bryce Young last year as well, just the size and the frame. I mean, and he's got to do a better job protecting himself. If you've watched any Jaden Daniels, like full games or all 22 games, man, I'll tell you, when he runs with the ball, he leaves himself open for some hits. And I mean, he is going to have to learn, just like Anthony Richardson had to learn this year, that, man, you are not invincible when you come to the NFL. You are playing with the big boys. You have got to protect your body. So I'm sure that's something that he is going to work on. There's a lot to like about Jaden Daniels, and I wouldn't be surprised at all given where he lands. I mean, who knows? We don't know that yet. He could be the best, year one quarterback, just like Stroud with, the Houston Texans. I mean, because if he gets their early draft capital, most likely they're going to stick him in there. As much as I don't think he should play year one, they're going to do it most likely, because the organization, let's say the Washington Commanders take him, new organization. Man, wouldn't it be nice just to play Hal for another year and say, hey, Jaden Daniels, we're going to sit you on the bench. We're going to let you become a professional, and then know that year two, when you trot him out there, when he's bulked up, when he knows the offense, maybe I'm living in a dream world. I probably am, but I don't know. If I was an owner of an NFL franchise, that's the route that I would be taking for every quarterback in this draft, because there's no perfect prospect. These guys all have traits that aren't, finally, or they're not final prospects yet. They're not final prospects. All right. Let's get to my number 4 guy. All right, J.J. McCarthy. Now, this guy's getting so much buzz right now. It's insane. I'm seeing him ranked like getting top 8, top 10, round 1 draft capital. I'll tell you what, my dashboard product, I have 3 all 22 films. I've watched this past week against all the best teams. I guess it was Iowa, it was Ohio State, it was everything at the end of the season. Man, I don't know. I just think this guy is not a day one guy. I mean, the reason I have him here at number 4 right now is because he's a 3-year player. He's got good size, 6'3", 202 pounds. He's a little undersized as well. But there's things that I like about his game. I can see what the people like, that there's a base foundation of skills that they think that they can build on, which, I don't disagree with. I think he's got really good mechanics. I think he's an underrated athlete as well. I think he's got some good arm talent. He's got some toughness. His pocket navigation is solid. But like I said, his mechanics, he's got really sound fundamental, so look, he's got those base traits, right? Man, the thing that just screamed at me watching the film is the lack of vertical throws and passes that he made in 3 years. And there's going to be people out there that say, hey, listen, he wasn't asked to do that because he played at Michigan. And, they ran the ball with Corum and Edwards, and I get it. But at the same time, if you watch the end of the season and the championship game, if he's so good and he's a round 1 draft prospect, why isn't he throwing the ball vertical to Roman Wilson? If you watch the films, especially the ones that I made, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like the check down to Colston. It was an inside slant to AJ Barner. It was check down, check down, check down, check down. It was never, going through the projection, his progressions and just like throwing the ball vertical. Everything was a check down. Everything was a first read. So I'm thinking, okay, he's going to get drafted. And if he's drafted in the first round, I really, really, really hope the plan is to sit him, just like a Jordan Love situation, because, I just think that he is a raw talent and I can see the upside. But man, reaching in the first round, I mean, for me, if I'm an NFL franchise and it's a first round, I'm drafting him because he's going to be a good player that can start now. I think you put J.J. McCarthy on the field year 1, I think he's in for a rude awakening. I think you could ruin the man just like they did with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was not ready to be an NFL starter year 1. And that's what they did because they pushed him up the draft because of some skill that they saw. I think J.J. McCarthy fits that same kind of mold. I mean, I really do. Could he be the Mac Jones from 3 years from now? Like Mac Jones had a great senior year at Alabama, but he just really wasn't ready for the big leagues. And they didn't surround him with talent. So if J.J. McCarthy goes to a team that has no wide receivers, a banged up offensive line, no running game, how good are the coaches? That's what I'm saying at the beginning of the show, like landing spot, it matters, right? Coaching scheme matters. Coaches matter. Experience matters. Wide receivers matter. Offensive line, how good are they? They matter. So J.J. McCarthy, to me, has got baseline skill sets, but to think that he's a top, first round prospect, I mean, I think you're rolling the dice, man. I think you're projecting something that could be, but I don't know. giving up a first rounder for him is I get it though, man. The NFL teams are just so needy for a quarterback. It's just crazy. I say it all the time. I can't believe we can't find 32 people in the world who can play this position at a high level. It's really quite crazy if you think about it. All right, let's get to my next player. All right, number 5, I'm going with Spencer Rattler, 6 foot, 219 pound senior. Went down to the Senior Bowl, had a really good Senior Bowl. You're probably asking, why Spencer Rattler before Bo Nix and Penix, and they're the two we're going to talk about here shortly. I just think he's got more upside. I think, he's a player who's been in the league 4 or 5 years. Was at Oklahoma, South Carolina the last 2 years. A lot of people don't like, he was a high prospect coming out of high school, but then he did that show on TV and no one liked it. He was too cocky and, he just didn't work out in Oklahoma, but he went to South Carolina, settled in. I think he's got the strong arm. I think he's got some decent mechanics. He's got a good release. Again, he's got the base skill traits that we're looking for. I like his intangibles too. I mean, he went from a situation, my podcast co-host Jason DiRienzo went down to the Senior Bowl and interviewed Spencer Rattler and said he was humble. He was there it was to work. So maybe he grew up a little bit, but I know a lot of people still are going to attach that tag to him 5 years ago when he was a freaking 19-year-old and a cocky kid who's been told his whole life that, you're the number one, you're the best quarterback in all of high school. Just didn't handle it well. But it seemed like maybe he's going down there. He's kind of, again, an NFL franchise is going to have to get in front of him and say, tell me about you. Or they're going to have to like him from an intangible standpoint. Like I said, we don't know the answer to that. But as far as what we see on the field, I think he's got a lot of good traits. I mean, his cons, he's undisciplined. When I watch him play, he's undisciplined. He's a gunslinger. He's got that gunslinger mentality, right? Thinking he can force the ball into places where he can't. His pocket awareness sometimes, again, he's another one of these quarterbacks that bails out of the pocket a little too much. I think he just likes to go out there as a gunslinger and make plays. But in the NFL, man, you got to win in structure. We want quarterbacks in the NFL that can get outside and when they have to run the ball, right? But the bottom line is you got to sit in the pocket, go through your progressions and be able to deliver the football. That's the game. That's the job, right? All that outside mobility stuff, that's icing on the cake. I think Spencer Rattler out of Penix and Bo Nix, I mean, I think Penix probably has that better, but he's got other flaws that are too much for me to overcome where I'm going to put him over Rattler. So I think Rattler's probably, I have on here, a 3rd round pick. And again, he's going to be a backup most likely in the NFL. I don't think that he is going to be a guy that's an NFL starter. I just really don't. I think J.J. McCarthy, I would draft him in my rookie draft in the 2nd round. I should have mentioned that before when we were talking about him, but I'm not reaching for J.J. McCarthy in the 1st round of a rookie draft. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to give up those great wide receivers, and I'll take J.J. McCarthy at the end of the 2nd if he gets a good landing spot. Spencer Rattler's a 3rd round pick to me in a rookie draft. I'm not going to reach for him either. So let's get to the next quarterback that I want to talk about, and that's Bo Nix, 6'1", 218 pounds. He set a record in college football. He's played 61 freaking games in the SEC and the Pac-12, most in college football. I mean, I like Bo Nix from an intangible standpoint because he went to Auburn and had a horrible 3 years, goes to Oregon, has a great 2 years, kind of got over that. A lot of pressure for that young man following in his father's footsteps at Auburn. Year 1 starter, won the SEC, I think, Player of the Year as a freshman. Then it all went downhill. Goes to a new atmosphere. Situations matter. Little better structure, little better. He got Troy Franklin, got a running game with Bucky Irving. So, finds himself in a better situation. So he had a big improvement from 2022 to 2023 in his film. And I can see why he's getting some draft buzz. Do I think he's a 1st round pick? Absolutely not. I think he's a day 2 maybe guy. He's got a big arm. He's got some athleticism for sure. Able to, pass on the run a little bit, but he excels just in chaos sometimes, I mean, he's another one of these gunslingers, man, that likes to go around and do that. But his cons are what make me think that he's not going to be an NFL starter unless, I mean, he's been playing what we said, 61 games and he's still doing this stuff. Even this year, his mechanics to me, I just can't get over. He's uber talented, but the poor technique in his play and his footwork, he rarely steps into his throws. I just don't see an NFL. I mean, if you can't overcome and you haven't learned that yet like 5 years of college. I just don't know you're going to go to the NFL and do all of a sudden become, I mean, maybe you're working with better coaches, and of course you can probably improve on that. His pocket navigation, he never climbs into the pocket. I just think he likes to escape the pocket a little too early. My podcast co-host, I just mentioned before, Jason, went down to the Senior Bowl, and the rumors down there, they called him Bubble Screen Bo because he's got this, this low, average depth of target. Look at the this year. It doesn't say these are career statistics you're seeing on the screen here at 65.7%, but this year I think it was over 70%. That's because these are all dump offs and all out routes, all within 10 yards. Very, very short passing, not a lot of vertical play at all. He took the checkdowns all the time, and I think it was a very dumbed down offense. I'm not really sure what kind of offense, Oregon run. I really didn't, go in depth in looking into that. But his lack of vertical attempts and accuracy is just a concern for me. And you got to be able to throw the ball down the field if you want to play in the NFL. And I just don't think Bo Nix is a guy that consistently did that this year. I mean, he showed flashes. I mean, all these guys showed flashes of throwing vertically. But man, he just checked the ball down all the time. And that's just where I am with Bo Nix. So not a guy that I'm probably really going to be drafting. So Michael Penix Jr. for me is my last quarterback in this show and in this ranking. All right, 6 seasons. 6 seasons he's been playing in college football. Played 49 games. Listen, he had a hell of a year, man. Throw into a great receiving core with Dunze, Polk, and McMillan. Strong arm. I mean, the deep ball accuracy this year was phenomenal. I mean, the deep back shoulder fade passes, or my notes I'm reading here, were outstanding. And you watch his all-22 film and you watch his games. It's just, I mean, he layered the ball perfectly on so many passes down the field. He can make the throws all over the field. Got the arm talent to do that. I think he's a good mental processor. He's a guy who manipulates with his eyes. He can read the field, and that's great, right? I mean, after all that experience of 6 seasons, he certainly should be doing that. His accuracy was average, but like I said at the beginning of the show, all of these quarterbacks showed lapses in accuracy. So it's hard to say, well, he's an inaccurate passer. And I'm like, okay, well, they're not going to be accurate all the time. So maybe that's something that they can continue to develop. But what I can't get behind Michael Penix Jr. as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and again, this show is all about dynasty and fantasy, right? I mean, I can't see Michael Penix Jr. really being a long-term fantasy option. I don't. My biggest concern with him is the way his mechanics when he faces pressure completely collapse. And I can't get the Michigan game out of my mind. And I know I'm going to say that, and I know I'm going to get comments on this video that, hey, man, you can't look at the Michigan game and look at all of, all that he did and do that. But, man, this guy didn't face any pressure. I mean, if you go back and watch his film from this year, I mean, he sat back there, he could have been in a lounge chair, a lot of times. I mean, he did not face a ton of pressure. They had a great offensive line. But let's say he goes to the NFL and has a bad offensive line. I mean, you look at Michigan, they put pressure on him, and that was their probably strategy is we're going to get so much pressure on him and get him uncomfortable. And man, when he was uncomfortable, he looked bad, man, throwing off his back foot. Just mechanics under pressure were terrible. I think he lacks touch on his passes, especially in the intermediate part of the field. And here it is from a fantasy standpoint, the biggest thing, he just lacks upside and athleticism and mobility and rushing ability. I mean, he 349 rushing yards over 6 seasons. I mean, from a fantasy standpoint in dynasty, I mean, he better throw 3 or 4 touchdowns a game if we think he's going to be a dynasty, like consistent dynasty producer. This guy's not, I mean, he can run the ball a little bit. I mean, if he had to run outside and throw the ball off script, he's not very accurate when he runs with the ball either. So that's another concern that I have. But I'm just not a Michael Penix Jr. guy. I'm not drafting him in my rookie drafts, and I'm just being real. I mean, that's what I'm going to do in these videos. I'm just talking ball, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I will not have any shares of Michael Penix Jr. I don't care what kind of draft capital he gets. I think he's fool's gold. I think he's had a really nice college career. This time last year, nobody was even talking about Penix as a quarterback prospect, and we just propped these quarterbacks up because the NFL is so desperate to draft quarterbacks. That's just I think that's just the way it is. So, as far as like overall, guys, that is the show. As far as overall, I mean, the top 3 guys I would target in rookie drafts. J.J. McCarthy for me, I'm gonna say it depends on the landing spot, and if I've got take him maybe in round 2, especially if I'm a QB needy team. But if I'm flush in my dynasty with quarterbacks, I am not going to be taking JJ McCarthy either. I think he needs a ton of time. And Rattler, Bo Nix, and Penix, personally, I don't think are ever going to be starting. They might take the Desmond Ritter path or the Sam Howell path and, be a serviceable starter for a year. I don't see them with their skill sets as being a consistent dynasty producer. So, this class is just loaded with wide receivers. That's where I'm going to be drafting a ton of talent, get a couple quarter or running backs, but maybe 1 or 2 good tight ends in this class as well. But I think the top 3 I'm going to target. The rest I'm probably going to fade. So there you guys got it, man. I hope you enjoyed the show. Just being real with what I see on the field, and after watching the film, got the combine coming up. So I don't know if that's going to move the needle for me much on quarterbacks and watching them throw the ball in shorts. I'm not going to be there, so I'm not going to be able to see the arm talent in person. So other than that, I'm going to have to take everyone else's opinion for it. But yeah, that's where we got, man. It's going to be a fun ride to get to the NFL draft. Again, if you want, just hit that subscribe button. Please help me support the show. Would be great. Hope you enjoy the content. I'll be doing a show like this for wide receivers as well, and running backs and tight ends. And I got a ton of rookie reports and a lot of great content on this channel. Thanks for watching.